All right, let's talk about that noisy roommate that lives inside so many of our heads. Overthinking. We're going to break down why our brains even do it, how a system that was built to protect us can end up feeling like a prison, and, most importantly, how to actually find some peace. So let's just dive right in.
I mean, seriously, how perfect is that? We have all been there, that feeling of just mental chaos, where your mind is absolutely racing, but you're getting nowhere. It is exhausting. But what if I told you that this whole internal mess actually started as your brain's way of keeping you safe?
That's right. Overthinking isn't some new glitch in the system. It's an ancient feature. You can think of it like this. Our brains are running on some seriously old software. And if we want to stop the glitches, we first have to understand the original code.
Now, this system is literally a lifesaver. When it senses a threat, or even just a little uncertainty, it smashes the alarm bell. It floods you with adrenaline to get you ready for action. It's exactly what helped our ancestors survive. The problem is, that alarm bell is now unbelievably sensitive.
And this is where it gets so interesting. Our brains evolved to handle clear, obvious dangers, like actual tigers in the grass. But today, the threats are, well, they're a lot more vague. A job interview, a text someone left on read, or just you, lying in bed at 2 a.m. worrying about the future. Your system fires up all the same, and that's exactly where all that mental clutter comes from.
So this protective instinct, when it's getting triggered all the time, can really backfire. It can trap us in this loop where thinking feels like we're doing something, but in reality, we end up completely and totally stuck.
Let's make this real for a second. Let's talk about Stephanie. She was a journalist in her 20s, and her ability to notice every little detail, that was a huge asset for her career. It was basically her superpower. But that same strength started to work against her.
Can you imagine that? The very thing that made her so great at her job was just draining her in her personal life. This constant observation, it created this powerful need to control everything, just to manage all the information coming in. And that anxiety, it pushed her into these obsessive routines, turning helpful habits into really rigid rules.
And this brings us to a really key idea, analysis paralysis. This is that state where your brain just keeps spinning and spinning on a problem. And it feels productive, right? It feels like you're in control, but what's really driving it is fear. And just like we saw with Stephanie, it can quietly take over your entire life before you even notice what's happening.
Okay, now this is a really important turning point. If you take just one thing away today, let it be this. We have to reframe how we see overthinking. It is not a character flaw. Just let that sink in for a second. Your brain isn't trying to sabotage you, it's trying to help. It cares so much about the outcome, about protecting you from making a mistake or failing. It's an act of care that's just, well, it's gone into overdrive.
And this leads us straight to perfectionism. We love to see it as a good thing, a sign of high standards. But so often, it's just fear wearing a fancy costume. Fear of not being good enough, fear of being judged, fear of making the wrong call.
So here's the crucial thing. The solution is not to try and achieve some Zen-like state with a totally empty mind. I mean, come on, that's not realistic. The most peaceful, effective minds aren't empty. They're just selective. They've learned how to tell the difference between a helpful signal and all the background noise.
So how do we get more selective? How do we actually untangle all this mental spaghetti? Well, let's get into some practical tools from Cognitive Behavioural Therapy, or CBT. This is your toolkit for calm.
Okay, let's break these three down. They're simple, but they are so powerful. First up, the label trick. This is all about creating some distance. So instead of getting sucked into the feeling of, I'm going to fail, you just label it. You say, I'm having the thought that I'm going to fail. That tiny shift creates a gap. It gives you perspective. Second, we've got grounding. When your mind is spinning out about the future, this pulls you right back to the present moment. Just focus on a physical sensation. What do you feel right now? The floor under your feet? The air in your skin? That physical anchor stops the mental spiral. And third, the 5-minute action rule. Overthinking loves it when we're still. To break its spell, just commit to 5 minutes of a simple physical action. Walk around the room, do a few stretches, anything. Thinking stops when movement starts. See, these tools aren't about fighting your brain. They're about learning to work with it. It's a process of growth, not a battle you have to win. And that brings us right back around to Stephanie.
This is such a beautiful insight, isn't it? She stopped trying to build a dam to hold back the flood of anxiety. Instead, she learned to just ride the wave, trusting that it would eventually pass, because it always does. That's not weakness. That is profound strength.
And this is really the heart of it all. You can't wrestle your thoughts into submission. You outgrow them. You do it by building trust in yourself, trust in the process. You learn that you are resilient enough to handle the storm without needing to control every single drop of rain.
And this is a super important distinction. Letting go of the need to control every single outcome doesn't mean you stop caring. Not at all. It means you trust your ability to handle whatever comes your way. You're basically trading frantic control for a quiet confidence. Stillness really is a superpower.
So I'll leave you with this last thought. In a world that's always telling us to hustle, to solve, to fix, what if the most powerful thing you could do when you're in the middle of a mental storm is to do nothing at all? What if true strength lies in the courage to just pause, to breathe, and to simply let the storm pass? What if the best action is no action?